I'm Pat Summerall.
And I'm Charlie Jones. Pat, on the show last week, we alluded to the fact that this time of the year, weather becoming worse and worse, snowstorms, rain, you would think that along the same vein that performances would become worse and worse. But that's not necessarily true. Leroy Kelly, for example, an outstanding day this past week in bad weather. Are there certain ball players that play better on a muddy field or on a snowy field?
I think, Charlie, the two classic examples that are active now would have to be Gale Sayers and Leroy Kelly, who had that big day last week. It has to do, number one, I think, with their particular style of running. And as we pointed out before, it also has to do with the fact that the defenders can't recover as well on a bad field like that.
Last Sunday in frozen but sold-out Franklin Field, Vince Lombardi's Redskins made their ice skating debut on Philadelphia's new Astro Rink. In the freezing rain, pass receiving was not the only phase of the game which was difficult. Passing was, too. League-leading passer Sonny Jurgensen, in fact, suffered the first safety in his 13 years of pro football. Norm Snead's embarrassment was even more acute as Carl Kammerer's blindside tackle shook loose a fumble which resulted in a Redskin touchdown. Running backs also had their problems. Despite the obvious difficulties, number 37, Tom Wodeschick, belted out more than 100 yards. Number 43, rookie sensation Larry Brown, glided over the icy surface for an amazing 138 yards. Eagle rookie Leroy Keys, number 20, scored the game's first touchdown on sheer willpower. Jurgensen tied it with a perfectly fired bullet to number 42, Charlie Taylor. Snead retaliated with an equally perfect pass to number 29, Harold Jackson, who, despite his small size, leads the NFL in reception yardage with over 1,000 yards. In the second half, Jurgensen's passing and Taylor's receiving got the Redskins moving again. Washington moved ahead by a touchdown on a lovely but much disputed touchdown pass from Jurgensen to tight end Jerry Smith. In the fourth quarter, Jurgensen again passed to Taylor, who caught 10 passes in all. Larry Brown finished his best day by scoring untouched to put the Redskins ahead by 12. Again, Snead brought the Eagles back with a scoring pass to Jackson. But an onside kick failed, and Washington had clinched second place. With one more win, the Redskins can celebrate their first winning season in 14 years. One man predicted as much. He should know. He's never known a losing season. Meanwhile, in Cleveland, instead of sleet and ice, there was rain and mud. It was all quite reminiscent of the conditions at the 1965 championship game between the same teams, Cleveland and Green Bay. But this time, there was no Bart Starr to lead the Packers. In his place was number 13, Don Horn, who threw a long touchdown pass to another Packer of the future, Dave Hampton, number 25. But unfortunately for the Packers, this was to be their only score, and it came with less than 2 minutes left in the game. The playing conditions were not exactly ideal for either team. But one man who never seems to be fazed by mud is the amazing number 44, Leroy Kelly. In all, Kelly gained 151 yards, the best single game total of the year in the NFL. Despite Kelly's brilliance, Cleveland's only touchdowns came through the air. The first was a Bill Nelson pass to leaping Paul Warfield, number 42. In reviewing this play, we can see that this score did not please Warfield as much as most of his touchdowns. The Browns' crushing score came on a pass interception by number 24, safety man Ernie Kellerman, who, like Leroy Kelly, seems completely recovered from early season injuries. In reviewing the interception from Don Horn's point of view, we can see that number 84, Carroll Dale, had beaten number 40, Erich Barnes. But Kellerman cut in front of Dale just in time to intercept. Beating the Packers can be a particularly joyous occasion, especially for the Browns, who until last Sunday had not beaten Green Bay in 13 long seasons.
Football is perhaps the best example of a team sport, since each man is important in a special way. Because there are at least 44 players who participate in each game, it's unusual when one man dominates the action. However, there are times when one player is having such a great day that he alone lifts the entire team. And last week, this was the story for the Falcons and the 49ers as young running backs led them both to victory.
In San Francisco, the Chicago Bears and the 49ers matched mind and muscle in a game that saw 25 different plays gain more than 10 yards each, often more. Gale Sayers supplied his usual quota of exciting runs, picking his way through the secondary on a short pass reception and then blasting in for a touchdown at close range. But the real star of the day was Jim Thomas, number 24, a rookie running back from Texas Arlington. In the second quarter alone, Thomas carried 5 times and gained an amazing 116 yards. It was Thomas who struck the deadly blows and made the vital moves which guaranteed victory for the 49ers. A 75-yard touchdown run by Thomas, followed by a 75-yard touchdown reception, also by Thomas, were the key plays in a game filled with long runs and long passes. Bill Tucker, number 45, Thomas' companion in the 49er backfield, also made significant contributions to the San Francisco win. Tucker scored on a pass from John Brody, then boomed through the Bears on a 24-yard touchdown run. Tucker, Thomas, and Doug Cunningham, number 42, accounted for all of San Francisco's touchdowns, 6 in all. Chicago managed only half that much. Dick Gordon pulled in a partially deflected pass from Virgil Carter and sprinted to the end zone. Late in the fourth quarter, Carter found Bob Wallace for another score, but the Tucker-Thomas duo proved too much for Chicago, and the 49ers won 42-21. In Atlanta, the Falcons battle the New Orleans Saints, and when these two Southern kissing cousins get together, there's never easy living. The hard-tackling Falcon defense managed to hold the New Orleans offense in check, but there were several Saints who distinguished themselves with outstanding individual performances. Tony Baker, number 38, a 225-pound supercharger from Iowa State, animated an otherwise lackluster offensive effort by New Orleans. Baker is a hard-striding, straight-ahead power runner who telegraphs his destinations, but seems to get there anyhow. He was the Saints' leading rusher, and he also caught 5 passes, one of them for a touchdown. Also of some solace to Saints coach Tom Fears was the performance of Dan Abramowitz. The fiery little flanker's 9 receptions enabled him to overtake the Steelers' Roy Jefferson and move into the lead in the NFL's pass receiving race. But the outstanding individual performance of this game, and perhaps of all games last week, was that of the Falcons' young halfback Harmon Wages, number 5. Wages unleashed an impressive barrage of pass catching, running, and throwing, accounting for a touchdown in each category. Wages' versatility and his knack for producing the big play reminds one of another do-it-all halfback who also wore number 5, Green Bay's golden boy, Paul Hornung. Quarterback Bob Berry co-starred with Wages in a sparkling offensive show by the Falcons. Berry completed 10 of 18 passes, 3 for touchdowns. Paul Flatley made a diving reception for 1 score, and 10-year veteran Gail Cogdill's grab accounted for another. Defensively, the Falcons featured a collective rather than individual effort. Atlanta's front 4 was in the Saints' backfield almost as much as quarterback Bill Kilmer. Hard-hitting, gang-tackling defense has long been a trademark of Van Brocklin coach teams, and his influence has been very evident in the Falcons' play this season. Atlanta's defense rewarded Van Brocklin with a touchdown in this game when Ron Axe blocked a punt and recovered it in the end zone. The Falcons' 45-17 victory was their 4th win of the year, assuring them of their finest season to date.
As a man waits to return a punt, a multitude of thoughts must race through his mind in regard to how far he'll return the kick or how bad things will be if he drops it. Last week, 2 punt return specialists found out how bad things could get as fumbled punts decided the outcome of the Broncos game with the Dolphins, as well as the Colts game with the Lions.
In weather more suitable for cracking hot chestnuts than cold shoulder pads, the Lions and Colts struggled to a standoff. The Lions scored their 2 touchdowns within a space of 16 seconds. Bill Triplett stormed 23 yards through an overshifted Colt defense, and then John Wright recovered Jim Duncan's fumble of the ensuing kickoff, and the Lions had a 14-3 halftime lead. There was near pandemonium in the third quarter when a David Lee punt touched Larry Walton, number 49, after Tom Vaughn had called for a fair catch, and the Colts recovered in the end zone for an apparent touchdown. No, said the officials. It was ruled a touchback since it was the Colts and not Walton who had given impetus to the ball. It would have been the Colts' ball had they recovered on the 1. But it was ruled Lions' ball and brought out to the 20. And the Colt faithful halted play for 15 minutes, voicing their opinion. It wasn't long after, however, when Earl Morrill threw a touchdown pass to Terry Cole in the end zone. Morrill threw another to Eddie Hinton in the fourth quarter. The teams traded field goals to create the tie, which was less than satisfactory for the 62,000 cold noses in Baltimore.
In Miami, Denver coach Lou Saban was less concerned with a cold on his nose than he was with a hot under his collar as he watched his capable but sputtering offense crumble under the Miami rush. The Broncos were favored because number 44, Floyd Little, was back after 5 weeks out. And things looked good when he streaked 67 yards the first time he touched the ball. After that, the Broncos' offense became victimized by the opportunistic Dolphins. Lloyd Mumford intercepted a Steve Tinsey pass, then handed the ball to Dick Anderson, number 40. The second-year safety from the University of Colorado then streaked 55 yards upfield to set up a third-quarter field goal. The Dolphins' offense, with Rick Norton at quarterback, got clutch play from tight end Larry Seipel, number 20, whose circus catches, including 2 touchdowns, served to nullify generally solid play by Denver's defense. Denver tied the game in the third quarter when a Rick Norton pass was intercepted by rookie safety George Burrell, number 41, and returned through heavy traffic for a touchdown. Denver was gaining momentum through their defensive play, and the game was very much in doubt until a Larry Seipel punt was misplayed by the usually reliable Bill Thompson, number 36. This proved Denver's undoing, as after a 1-yard plunge by Jim Kick, the Broncos couldn't overcome the freewheeling Miami secondary. Denver scored with 10 seconds left, but it wasn't enough, as Miami, in winning its third game, ruined Floyd Little's return to action. When a team is going badly, there is no single player who takes more abuse from the sports writers and the fans than the quarterback. Unfortunately for Fran Tarkenton of the Giants and John Hadle of the Chargers, their teams have not been performing as expected. And Tarkenton and Hadle have been getting a good deal of criticism. Last week, both quarterbacks came up with a rebuttal in the form of a solid winning performance.
San Diego welcomed the Irish and the rest of Boston with a lesson in Scottish frugality. The Chargers were penny pinchers for yardage and stopped Big Jim Nantz cold and hard. The combination of quarterback Mike Tolliver and rookie Ron Sellers looked good all day, even when the catch came after the tackle. San Diego quarterback Marty Domrus covered his mistakes with a face-saving device called a touchdown and raised the score to 14-3. Then the heavily criticized John Hadle entered the game in the second half and threw 2 touchdowns, one to Gary Garrison, number 27. The second was a rocket to number 19, Lance Alworth. Alworth turned it into the largest Charger play from scrimmage this year, 76 yards and 6 points. But Boston went down scrapping. In a fourth quarter flurry, they forced a fumble and got Jim Nantz rolling. Then linebacker John Bramlett intercepted a John Hadle pass and looked like a prize fullback on his way through the crowd. Jim Nantz came through again. The plucky Patriots tried for 2 points, and reserve quarterback Kim Hammond was the essence of their spirit. But the effort was too late, and the door was closed on Boston's bid for a playoff berth, 28-18.
The spotlight in Yankee Stadium was on quarterback Fran Tarkenton. While his own New York Giants were losing 7 in a row, Scramblin' Fran was the victim of heavy criticism. Now he had to meet the Cardinals, who had drubbed him the last time 42-17. St. Louis threatened several times. Number 36, MacArthur Lane, burned upfield with 1 kick. But every time St. Louis got in scoring range, their attack was turned around and buried. The Giant defense was out for revenge. Cardinal leader Jim Hart completed only 5 out of 14 passes in the first half. The solid New York wall allowed Cardinal runners only 45 total yards the entire game. Big Sid Edwards, number 39, had his worst day. But Scramblin' Fran went wild. He and his Giants amassed 517 offensive yards. Rookie Don Herman, number 85, had a field day. Veteran Joe Morrison, number 40, hurdled over for the first of 7 New York touchdowns. Versatile Joe Morrison has played 10 invaluable years with the Giants at several different positions. Last Sunday, he scored 3 touchdowns. On this afternoon, Tarkenton molded his scrambling into some fine rollouts as he hit Don Herman for the 3rd touchdown. On another rollout, he hit Ernie Coy with a 2-yard strike. After Fran had redeemed himself, reserve quarterback Gary Wood entered the game. And with 2 minutes left, finished off the Manhattan Massacre with a pass to number 87, Dick Kotite. At the end of the day, St. Louis was all but buried. And Tarkenton and his Giants ended up looking as powerful as some other teams in recent New York history.
In the second half of our show, we'll see the Cowboys and the Jets as they put a lock on their division championships. We'll see the Rams' 11-game winning streak come to an end. And we'll look at the Raiders and Chiefs as they each win their 11th game. In this week's feature, which is called Your Father's Mustache, we'll see the players venting their emotions in a manner that's sometimes dramatic, often humorous. We'll be right back with these stories after this message.
Watching football is a lot like watching an old-time silent movie, because you can't hear what anybody's saying. The only way you can tell how the players feel emotionally is by watching them act and react, as you will see in our feature titled Your Father's Mustache. Sometimes their acting can become rather melodramatic.
Dallas blew into Pittsburgh in search of a Capital Division title and met two opponents, the Steelers and the weather. Wind, rain, and snow plagued both teams all afternoon and made the football a slippery and sometimes maddening item. Neither team could generate much of an offense in the mud, as a receiver often resembled a baseball player stealing home plate. The hungry Steelers have been victorious only once this season, and a strong defense was their only hope for victory. The Cowboys found their biggest gun plugged with mud as a soggy Calvin Hill was held to a measly 23 yards. While the Steeler defense remained almost impregnable, Dick Shiner unlimbered his waterlogged arm and hit diving John Henderson for Pittsburgh's only score. Dallas squeezed a little offense from their drenched attack. Mike Clark booted a field goal and Craig Morton skirted right in for a touchdown as the lackluster Cowboys held off the determined Steelers to clinch their fourth straight title, 10-7.
As always in the Astrodome, the weather was perfect. But Houston quarterback Bob Davis found himself victimized by the Jets defense. They stole his passes. They stole his audible signs. And adding insult to injury, they even tried to steal his shirt. It got so that Davis, who had just been activated for this game, found himself wishing he was with that other number 12, watching safely from the sidelines. Although number 10, Don Truhl, started for the Oilers, his luck was all bad, and the Jets took immediate advantage of him as an interception and a recovered fumble led to 2 touchdowns. Number 83, George Sauer, caught a pass in the end zone, and with 3.5 minutes gone in the first quarter, the Jets led 14-0. J.W. Namath to number 31, Bill Mathis, made it 21-0, and Houston was in a bind. But when things looked darkest, quarterback Davis got hot on rookie Jerry Levias, number 23, and the Oilers fought back to 21-10 at the half. most of the second half, the Houston attack fizzled, and the Jets had a 16-point lead with 5 minutes remaining. But the Oilers refused to hang it up, and they began a tremendous comeback. Davis threw to number 38, Rich Johnson, for a touchdown, and a successful two-point conversion brought Houston to within 8. Although the onside kick was no surprise, the bounce it took was, and the Oilers had life. But with time waning, the last-ditch effort failed, and the Jets had won the title in the AFL East. Jet coach Weeb Eubank did not seem overjoyed by the victory. But then would you be smiling if there was a possibility that your next two important games were with the Raiders and the Chiefs?
In the NFL, Minnesota and Los Angeles met. The outcome really did not count. But does the winner have a psychological advantage because they will again be meeting in the divisional playoffs?
I always had the feeling that once you beat a team, you might break down their confidence a little bit. And so I felt that the advantage would go to the team that won in previous meetings. I remember the series between Baltimore and the Giants in the late 50s and the early 60s. I had the feeling we might never beat the Colts and that we just dreaded to play them every time we had to. That's not always necessarily the case, though. The Dallas-Cleveland series of last year would have to be a classic example, as Dallas won in regular season and Cleveland won convincingly in the playoffs.
Another example, in 1940, you may have played in that ball game. Washington beat the Bears in regular season, and the Bears walloped the Redskins 73-0 in the championship game.
I played in the first game, the one that the Redskins won, but I pulled a muscle kicking off. Didn't play in the 73-0. That's another classic example that might disagree with what I think. Let's take a look, though, right now at last week's Viking-Ram game.
The Rams and the Vikings met amid such dramatic overtones that only Los Angeles could have provided an adequate backdrop. The leading man for the unbeaten Rams was rugged Roman Gabriel, who looked very much the part. The strangers from the Midwest had a rough-cut hero of their own in Joe Kapp, who plays football the same way that he chews gum. Kapp opened with a brutal ground attack against the vaunted Ram defense, and Dave Osborne gave the Vikings 7 points of early leverage. The Vikings were able to control the ball on the ground, but Kapp could only manage 72 yards through the air, partly because of misconnections like this one with Gene Washington. However, Joe Kapp has proved this season that he is a big play quarterback. When he really needs it, he comes up with it. John Henderson's catch and run set up a 14-0 Viking lead, and the Rams found that playing comeback can be very tedious business against the firm of Eller, Larson, Page, and Marshall. When Ram runners were able to sift past the front four, a linebacker wave assaulted. A well-publicized Minnesota pass rush was not able to sack Gabriel once, but that isn't to say that it didn't make its presence felt. With pressure like this, the Rams were unable to produce a sustained offensive effort until late in the fourth quarter. A 77-yard drive looked more like the Rams of previous weeks. Larry Smith's diving catch gave Los Angeles hope and brought them to within 7 points. But for the remaining 3 minutes, the Vikings did precisely what they had been doing for much of the game. They controlled the ball and the Rams for a 2013 victory and a bit of early momentum for the Western Division playoff game.
No matter how you cut it, the Raiders and the Chiefs are the class of the AFL's Western Division. They ran away from the other teams in the West, and it's easy to see why they spell nothing but trouble for the Jets and the Oilers. Their well-rounded strength was evident last week as the Chiefs downed the Bills and the Raiders walloped the Bengals.
Raider quarterback Daryle Lamonica pitted his 30 touchdown passes and years of experience against Cincinnati's rookie general Greg Cook. Both teams have speed to spare. The Bengals' Paul Robinson, number 18, was a world-class hurdler, but the man motoring in pursuit was the Raiders' George Atkinson, number 43, who turns most races into mismatches. When conventional methods of attack fail for Cook, he turned to the archaic flea flicker and produced Cincinnati's biggest profit of the day. Only twice did the Bengals find the key to the Raiders' end zone, as Oakland's 11th victory of the season was never in doubt. The Raider defense blunted Cook with collective and individual displays of brilliance, like Willie Brown's interception. After a night in the hospital, Daryle Lamonica threw 3 touchdown passes, with 2 of them going to number 81 Warren Wells. Lamonica's 33 touchdown passes leaves him but 4 short of breaking Y.A. Tittle's and George Blanda's record of 36 touchdown passes in one season. On the ground, the Raiders were just as awesome as they rushed for more than 300 yards, the longest being a 51-yard sprint by flashy Larry Todd. "42-year-old George Blanda capped the Oakland barrage by hitting Warren Wells, who made his 3rd touchdown reception of the day as the Raiders romped over the Bengals 37-17. The Kansas City Chiefs, sporting a glossy 10-2 record, hosted the Buffalo Bills in a game that seemed a mismatch. The Chiefs own most of the AFL's defensive marks, and all day long, Buffalo quarterback Jack Kemp defiantly looked down the muzzle of one of pro football's fiercest defensive lines. Even when Kemp released the ball in time, he paid dearly. And once he was unceremoniously kissed hello from the blind side by 265-pound Aaron Brown, number 87. At game's end, Jack Kemp's bruised body had aged 20 years. On offense, the Chiefs were almost as devastating. Robert Holmes carried Kansas City to their first score as he battered his way to the 1. Then he blasted a path through the Bills' stacked defense, and the Chiefs led 7-3. Against Buffalo, number 21 Mike Garrett pretended he was Superman. He darted and danced faster than a speeding bullet. He was more powerful than a locomotive. But alas, poor Mike wasn't able to leap tall buildings with a single bound. Whenever the Chiefs sputtered, they called on place kicker Jan Stenerud, whose 13th consecutive field goal established a new pro football record as Kansas City built up a 16-6 pad on the Bills. To a housewife, a clothesline means one thing. To a pro football player like Bobby Crockett, it means running pell-mell into sure suicide. Crockett's catch seemed to spur Buffalo, and they drew close to the Chiefs on a touchdown pass from Kemp to Marlin Briscoe. Trailing 19-13 in the final period, Kemp connected with Crockett, who connected with free safety Johnny Robinson. Crockett suffered his second knockdown of the game, but scored his first knockout. Buffalo tied the game at 19 as O.J. Simpson streaked around in and left the whole right side of the Kansas City defense in his wake. Only 1 point now separated Buffalo from possible victory. When Marlin Briscoe was forced to improvise the extra point, the Bills lost their chance for the lead. With just 1:59 left in the game, the Chiefs were spared a tie as Jan Stenerud's fifth consecutive field goal of the day ensured a 22-19 victory.
Well, Charlie, you did pretty well last week in your first venture into the NFL and picking Minnesota over Los Angeles. Let's put you back in your own league now. Now that all the playoff spots have been clinched, who do you think is going to be the AFL champion?
Pat, since I was about this high, I've had great respect for men who are larger and stronger than I am. Therefore, I will pick Oakland over Kansas City because the Oakland players like for me to pick them to win. The Kansas City players like for me to pick them to lose. What about the NFL? Do you have the same situation? Who will win there?
Most people seem to have the idea that the Western Division winner, the Western Conference winner, is the stronger team. However, I've still got the feeling that the best talent is in Dallas, and Dallas is my pick to be the NFL champion.
I'm Charlie Jones.
And I'm Pat Summerall, and we'll see you next week.